But I think we had three things that we were going to cover today. Betsy and Angie were gracious enough to do the agenda. And it looked like what we wanted to talk about is we, are still doing our topic around this mandated supporter. So we've evolved a little bit more and we want to really go over our 5 questions, and I'll just go over them real quickly. What we said is, can you mitigate the issues, concerns with additional resources? That was one of the questions. What are the allegations, the top 3 concerns? And what behaviors are you seeing? And then 3, what do you want to happen? And 4, confronting own bias, safety versus risk, poverty versus risk, poverty versus neglect. Could this be an opportunity gap? And then harm removal. It's kind of where we left off at the last meeting. And when we looked at our agenda, those were the 5 questions. But what we came up with for the agenda was to discuss the layout and the plan of those questions and what a video might look like. And that we actually wanted to do a script to get the next step for the project together. And then of course we have to have a follow-up discussion because we can't just leave that topic of abolish the child welfare system alone. So we were going to touch on that a little bit too. And then I actually had something I was hoping to share, but I don't see it. I actually got it from Dr. Miller. And it was another lunch and learn that's being done around mandated supporter training. If I can locate it again, I'll certainly pull it back up again. But that's what our time together looks like. So I see people are still coming in. Please introduce yourself in the chat. And I see Betsy says excited. Tashara, okay. Anxious. All right, great. So, and Angie feeling excited as well. And then Heidi, you're from Allegheny County's Office of Behavioral Health. Welcome. I don't know, Heidi, if this is your first meeting or not. So that's kind of what our agenda looks like. Angie and Betsy, did you guys want to kick us off? Did you want to say anything to elaborate? Did I miss anything?
I was looking all over for my mute. So I think because we've kind of had some stop and goes on this, I don't know who's been with us for a while, but I just wanted to kind of lay out what our idea was, just to recap, because we have some new people, and also just keep going. So what our plan was is along the lines of the mandated supporter is to really do like where we have these cards that we could give out to mandated reporters. That basically what we talked about is we would never encourage people not to call, but we want people to pause before they call and ask themselves these 5 questions. With that, Angie and I found a really cool, we didn't, Angie found a really cool work that out of Illinois that had been doing this. And I think we were going to even reach out to see if we could recreate it for our own purposes, because it's so good. And why recreate the wheel, right? But on
just jump in really quickly. I'm taking notes, y'all. I'm sorry. Who's doing it in Illinois? Is it the Department of Human Services or advocacy groups?
Angie, you're driving, aren't you? Angie Steele.
Get it for everyone. No, dang it. Can you hear me?
No, I found it. So we'll wait till, okay. Let me see who it's from. It's Alternatives to DCFS. I'm trying to find. That's really weird. It was, I guess it was at advocacy work groups, because it was like someone from Houston Graduate School of Social Work, Shriver Center on Poverty Law, and social service workers. This looks like it's North Carolina. I mean, New York City, but I thought it was Illinois. Anyway,
share it with us.
Yep. How do I share to all of the people on here?
All you have to do is go to the bottom, press share screen.
Oh,
after you put it up.
I thought I didn't mean. Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
Let me make sure you have privileges.
Oh, you meant you wanted to send it through the link. Is that
Or
what
you can in the chat, or you can share your screen.
I could do that. I can send it in the chat.
Okay.
Because what we were thinking is if we're doing this as cards, on the back also tells you how to be a good reporter. Like if you answered all these questions, please then be a good reporter. And it has like kind of like caveats on the back, which is really, I think something. So I think we can nail this up. I guess the question is, did that work? Paste. It's not letting me paste. I can't do more than one thing at a time. I'm going to, when I stop talking, I will share it with you all. But so we're thinking of having like the 5 questions on one side and on the back, like if you have to call, this is what you do. So we were thinking if we could get those out, so that would be one way. And then we also wanted to have 2 videos also that could go out, and we haven't discussed where they would live. But a video on the 5 questions on how to be an informed and good supporter and a mandated reporter. And then the second one is the harm of removal, because we're also finding out that a lot of times people are calling because they want the kids removed. So I think it's important that we have those 2 videos when we do send out this, like send it out. And I know we wanted to do a bunch more. I also know our training department is interested in this. This is a really hot topic right now. I think there's a lot of people doing this stuff. So I think we need to like shore up some of our resources, because I think I also know our training department is interested in the education piece as well.
So you say the mandated supporter has become, because right. And I was going to share something. Actually, this is what I got from Dr. Miller. I, thought that we were cutting edge and we were innovative with this, but apparently no. So just real quick, I'm going to just share what Dr. Miller sent me, just so that I can make sure that everybody has a chance to see this. Okay, it won't let me scroll down. Okay, here it is. Can everybody kind of see this?
Yes.
Everybody can see it. Okay. And so this is a free virtual lunch and learn that is also going to be going on. So this actually gave me, so Betsy, you're right. Everybody is kind of, now let me scroll down a little bit more. Everybody seems to be doing something. Nonetheless, it's a lunch and learn. Around the same thing that we have been spending a lot of time talking about as well. I don't know that they're doing a video as much as they're probably just putting the information out and they're talking about it. But if you're interested in going to that and maybe sharing the information with the group, it is August 25th. And I can forward it if you just
please, or if there's a registration link to one, if you can drop it in the chat so we all can just, for people who are available can register.
Right. I'm not going to be able to do that. That's going to be above my technology grade. So I will, if you let me know, I'll forward it to you. That's what I'll do. Okay. And then that's not true. I might be able to, I could probably do something. Just give me a minute. I'm like Betsy, I can't think about it and do it at the same time. I have to try to, do one thing or the other. All right, but so it is interesting. It's great that people are having these conversations all around. So we're not the only ones, but maybe we were the ones that started or initiated it. I don't know.
Who cares? As long as people are talking about it, right?
It's great, right? Absolutely. What were you going to say, Eunice?
I was just going to say that's how I kind of got to this group. I was part of our Leadership Academy, and my change project was this topic. And when I was doing my presentation, that's when others had heard about it and told me that you guys were working on the same thing. So I just wanted to add that part of my project, what I was suggesting was, in addition to the video, like sectioning off the video was my idea, and that second part would be giving them community resources. So if you're asking someone to say, instead of calling CYF, we know mandated reporters are gonna say, you've been beating this in my head to call you, now where do I call? And then adding like a section with, let's call the Family Support Center if we know that this is something regarding lack of food and lack of things like that. So I don't know if you guys have ever talked about that, but I was just gonna add that too.
Right, Eunice, that's great. Thank you for adding that. We have had a discussion. We actually narrowed it down to 5 questions is where we were at. And I'll go through them again. And we thought that, you know, we would kind of center our work around those 5 points, videos that went a little bit more in detail to just give people some other alternatives or options. I think what is concerning to most people is that there is fines and imprisonment associated with not reporting. So people would rather over report, I think, than run the risk of the fines and imprisonment. So I think that's one part of it. Go ahead, Tasha.
No, I'm just wondering if in you all's, just as long as you've been clinicians, if you've ever ran into a situation where that's actually happened, because I'm wondering if the fear is a bit disproportionate and if it might be helpful to do some education around that as well. Like, these are the situations where that actually has happened and here's the frequency of it.
Yes.
Well, and I also think, like, you know, we're not talking about a kid that comes to school with a bruise and says their dad did it and they don't call. Like that's not the calls we're like concerned about, right? It's all those like ridiculous calls, like suspect of sexual abuse. We get it. You know, you don't know if it happened, but like those are the clear ones that I think potentially, I guess if you knew that stuff, you could get maybe fine. But you're right. I don't think anybody has, or I don't know of it. But I think it's also kind of an excuse of why people say they do, because like you're calling about tall grass. Like, who's going to arrest you for not calling about tall grass? Like, that's not a realistic fear. I think it's kind of what people just like kind of hide behind to a certain extent, you know, like, I don't know. That's just my thoughts. I sent you that in email to Shira. If you can share that, for some reason I can't. I guess I'm over the technology age to where I can't do it. But I think that would be helpful in what we're doing for moving forward. So I don't know if we could send it out to the group or put it in the chat.
Okay.
And I wonder where we could find those statistics.
So, and one of the things that makes it challenging is that the groups change all the time. So I'm going to say this, I've been saying it at the beginning of every group. If you please, let's be consistent as we start to really dive into the videos, the scripts, and doing the work, because it's going to make it really confusing if we're not. And I think the best way to do this, it would be to assign leaders to whatever group you're going into with your question. And then you can kind of reach out to your people when we meet and come back with the information. Betsy, what do you think about that?
Sounds good.
All right. Okay, so do you want me to review the questions again? And do we want to break out into groups? Or Betsy, what's your plan?
Do we want to just say them again and see if there is any concerns with them? Because we did this before. And I know like the race equity one went really long, but if we're just doing a real quick, like these are the 5 questions, I don't think we can solve inequity in that. So that's the one I think we need to maybe flesh out a little bit better.
All right, we were in that group. Okay.
Yeah, but I wonder if we could just nail down the 5 questions of finally. And so if we could just say them one at a time and be like, does anyone have a problem with this one? Or does anyone have different wording?
Okay. All right. Sarah, do you want to, I see you just jumped on. I'm going to put you to work. I know you have them. So do you want to go over those questions?
Yes. I also sent them to Betsy recently, and I'm getting on now so I could share.
Okay.
So question number 1 was, can you mitigate the issues or concerns with additional resources? Number 2 are, what are the allegations, top 3 concerns, and what behaviors are you seeing? Number 3 was, what is the desired outcome? Number 4 was confronting own biases, safety versus risk, poverty versus risk, poverty versus neglect. Could this be opportunity gap? And then number 5 was looking at harm of removal.
So number 4 is the one that we were struggling with, I think, with the right way to phrase it. Although I like the way Sarah kind of read it today.
I guess my question is, with the harm of removal, is that a question? I thought that was an education that we were going to do.
Well, so we did decide that we thought it was an education, but it was still in those questions.
So is everyone okay with the first 3? So it's the circumstances. What do you want to happen? What do you want the outcome to be? And then the third one is, what are the top 3 concerns, I guess?
So when we were in the little work groups working on each question, I was in with group 1, and we kind of fleshed it out a little bit. And what we came up with was, are your concerns based on the parent/caregiver's refusal to provide adequate care, or are there uncontrollable life factors such as cultural practices, socioeconomic status, English proficiency, familial situations, limited education, or other factors that could be contributing to the concerns? Which is long, but.
I like it because it's super specific. I mean, some of the examples, the group may decide to add or subtract from, but the beginning of that, Sarah, I love.
Someone just asked if you could share the questions in the chat. Could you cut and paste those?
But I do want to ask the group, and I'm going to ask everybody to weigh in. And I just want to hear what your thoughts are. So Eunice, I can see you. What are your thoughts? Do you like that question? Is it too lengthy for you? Do you have something you'd like to add?
Oh, I think it was good. I thought it was a little lengthy, but I thought it was specific enough. So I'm okay with it for now. Yeah.
Okay. Rusty?
Yeah, sorry.
What did you think about the question?
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Okay. Sarah, you want to read it again?
Hold on. 1 second here.
I was trying to write.
Wait, so am I doing all of the questions again, or just
No,
that one?
just the second one.
Okay.
Can we share them in the chat? Is there a way? So some
Yeah.
of us that are like
I'm
newer to
working
the
on
group
that.
are playing
I'm
catch
working
up.
on that.
Okay. Once she puts them in the chat, you can, we'll give you a second to kind of look over it. And then I'm going to ask everybody their thoughts. Rusty, did you tell us who you were in the chat?
No, I didn't. I will though.
Well, who are you? We want you. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Rusty Hewitt, and I'm a school-based liaison for the Office of Behavioral Health. I'll put it in the chat though.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, we just found out today, so I'm sorry. I'm trying to catch up.
Okay. Well, we'll get you all caught up. We're going to put you to work too, so.
That's fine. Okay, there we go.
I shared them in the group, although I accidentally put something else in there.
Okay.
But it's
I
there.
think that was the last link that we looked at.
Yeah.
Okay. And
I
that's
meant
fine.
to take that out, but then I accidentally pushed send instead.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? So there's a couple of us from the Office of Behavioral Health, like Rusty, myself, and Heidi, that are new to this group today. And so we're playing catch up a little bit. What are, I'm also in my car, so sorry for my lack of camera and stuff, but who are these questions directed towards? So we know how to answer like, are they good or not or whatever.
Right. Okay. Thank you for first sharing that you're new to the group, because that gives us information. We can provide you with a little bit more help with where we're at. So this is the child welfare work group. And what we've been looking at for, I guess, this quarter is this whole idea around disproportionality, disproportionate reporting among, families of color, Black and brown families. And so what we've really been trying to do is just encourage more appropriate, I don't want to say appropriate, but more, I guess, complete reporting or documentation, and really making sure that people are reporting a child line when, it's an actual report or allegation of abuse, and not when it's just a family that's in need of support, or not when it's related to poverty or a cultural issue. And so we never want to discourage anyone from reporting, but what we do want to do is make sure that people have information and resources. And so this group, collectively, there have been a lot of transition in terms of who's been here, thought that it would be best if we did these education blasts. And through these education blasts, we would really give people information about, one, the harm of removing a child. If we don't need to do that, we really want to make sure that children come in and stay in the home. So harm reduction, but really also these education blasts about, culture and poverty and, what abuse is not, so that, the community at large would have a greater understanding and be more informed when they were, going to make a report. So we've been working on this now for, it seems like, months. We did take a break, I think, for the month of July. And from the different people that have come in through the groups, this is what we've evolved into. And it doesn't mean that we have to stay there. We can certainly look at, if we want to revamp these again. But our hope was to do video blasts that we will put out in a number of different places that would, share information. Betsy, did I leave anything out, or Sarah?
I have a quick question. Would schools be one of your target audiences or no? Is this within DHS, or is this?
Absolutely, schools would be one of them.
Because I know they're a big offender. I know they're a huge offender.
Yeah, I think, so we're just trying to, I guess what overall is we're trying to reduce the system involvement of our families, period, right? It's part of, because I'll just tell you, for like the office I work at CYF, we accepted, I think, 10% of the investigations we got last month, 10%. So 90 families got investigated that we found there was no concerns. And so that is very intrusive. It's very upsetting to families. So we're just trying to get before that, right? So I think, and we were thinking, if we have a place to have these education blasts that people could go, we could even make them specific for schools, specific for hospitals as we went along. We just want to make sure we at least had 2 videos, the harm of removal, and then the explanation of these questions more in depth. So these questions are just like how to pause, and then we'll have an education video that would go more in depth, where we could go really in depth about cultural issues, poverty, opportunity gaps, those types of things. So it doesn't have to be all involved on this card. It just has to be a thought-provoking question to pause before people call. Does that help?
That was very helpful. Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure how to answer how's the question, but now I know what's that. Very helpful. Thank you.
So I'll just give you a few seconds to read through them. And I think we stopped at 2, so we can kind of get your input on 2.
I like your, what do you want to have? Like, I like number 3, what do you want to happen? But I know with schools, what they want to have happen and what is reality are also 2 different things. So,
Oh, yeah.
I like that. I like that question a lot, because usually it's, they want them removed, but that's never gonna,
My question is why too? Why do you want them to be removed?
yes.
And a large percentage of that is, one, they don't know that there's really not a lot of places that we can move them to, unless we really, really have to move them to. I don't think they understand how harmful it is. And I think that's where the harm reduction, education blast or video will really support, their thinking. Because if a kid is up all night playing video games, do you really want him removed from the home for that? No, you just want him to stop playing the video games so he can learn in school, right? All right, so what do you think about number 3?
So I put them in the chat again and I cleaned them up a little bit.
Okay, you did. All right. So let's go back to number 2. Is everybody good with number 2? You can use your reactions button, put your thumbs up, let me know I can move on. All right, I see 1. I see, all right, 2, 3. All right, looks like I can move on with number 2. 3, are we okay? I know that Heidi said she liked it. I'm assuming Heidi's okay. Everybody says 3 is good. What about 4? What do you want to happen? We're gonna leave that one there. We're good with that. All right. And then what about 5? This is where we were at with this. We were really struggling with how to phrase this and what to say. Because what we believed is that most people would say, well, I don't have any biases. I'm not making this decision based off of my biases. That's not what this is about. But we know that when we look at the data, that it tells us something different.
I don't think we're going to teach someone about their biases in a card. So
Right.
like, I think just making, okay, so I'm envisioning a card like this. I have it on my desk. Like, if people, it just starts getting in their brain is what I guess we're hoping. Just like, and I think if they think about it enough, we're not going to solve the bias, but if we make people at least mindful, and in the video, we can get into it a little bit more. Because I think we were getting too much in the weeds last time we did it to try and educate people on how to know if you're biased, which is just, I mean, that's like years of work, right? I mean, we all are in the process of working through that forever.
Okay, so you just want the card to kind of give them a nudge to think about it, right?
I think so.
Thinking? Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, that's just my thinking.
I agree. I think that the card should have very brief, simple questions to get people's minds. And then if we can go forward with that publication that Betsy sent out, that's where we can start getting into the questions about bias and confronting your bias and those kinds of things. But this one, just having as like a reminder, will get your mind thinking. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Words aren't my best right now.
So do we want to keep it like this? Number 5, we want to just leave it alone and keep it like that? Tashara, you have a look. What were you going to say?
Oh, you're muted.
I'm sorry. I actually, when Angie mentioned that resource, I went and I pulled it up and I was reading some of the examples that they give around biases, and it's really, really good. So that was the look on my face, Tawanda.
Okay.
I say we just steal the whole thing.
I mean, slap the alligator.
I'm for it.
It's a property attorney, but I doubt they would sue. I think
We'll change the graphics and we'll put CYF there instead of DCFS. Done.
I mean, who can get mad at spreading good things?
right.
But is that going to be our defense?
Yeah.
To your question, Tawanda, you were saying, so what do we do with question number 5?
Right. And it seems like most of the group is saying leave it. I don't know if we should shorten it. So I was just asking you, you look like you had a thought about it, but I know you didn't have one about that per se. It was something else. So
I think we need to word it a little bit differently because it doesn't actually look like a question. Have you considered your own biases?
So I don't know where it came from, but it came up when Betsy and I were talking earlier this week, but we had one that just said, have you checked your biases or place of privilege? We thought maybe that came up in the last conversation about
It
this.
did come up in the last conversation, and I thought we thought that might be too much of a sting, and people
Oh,
No, I
might.
think the sting was when I said,
are you racist?
are you? That was a no-go.
So this one, just again, because like I'm new to the group, is this one meant to like make them think about the harm of removal? Because I'm thinking like confronting their own bias of safety versus risk, poverty versus like all this kind of stuff. This is somewhat captured in your first question of like, are
Yeah.
your concerns real or are they based on cultural practices, socioeconomics, da 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 da? That's different. So I'm wondering like what
Oh.
particularly do we want this to capture that's not captured in the first question?
Well, so that first question is more about, it's more about, is this a actual neglect or abuse, or are there other things going on? So it does have a little bit to do with biases, but the question number 5 is a little deeper about your own personal stuff.
So Lindsay, Tammy, and Rachel, I'm going to ask that you weigh in and tell us your thoughts around the questions.
Yeah, for sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Also, I am new to the group. Sorry you've had so much change. I know that can be exhausting, especially when you're wordsmithing. I work with Angie and Betsy and Eunice. I'm part of CYF. I love these questions. I'm super, super excited for the work. The one thing I would say is I used to work in communications, and even if this is going out to like doctors, teachers, nurses, like whoever, most people read at an 8th grade reading level. So, and I know I don't want to get like too wordsmithy on a giant call, like that might be like hard to accomplish, but I do think that a couple of these could just be like pared back a little bit to be made more simplistic, but I think the spirit of them is spot on.
I smell a volunteer.
I
do
Oh,
too.
dang it. Gosh, Betsy always invites me to these things.
You showed up.
I think so too. All right.
Yes, I think that's
appreciate that,
great.
Rachel. Good feedback. All right, Tammy, what about you?
I'm okay with them. I just know that when you tell people that they may have biases, like you guys said, it tends to back them off. And I've been sitting here thinking of a better way to say that because that needs to be said. Just trying to think of a better way to say it because it does need to be considered. But other than that, I'm okay with everything.
Okay, thank you. Right, I think we've been struggling with that a lot. So I think that's very helpful. I know in the mandated child abuse reporter curriculum, it does ask people to acknowledge culture and poverty as not being safety factors or safety threats. And understanding that there's something different. In fact, there is 4 things that the curriculum actually says is not child abuse. One is culpability, environmental factors, which is poverty or environment. It is safety is another one. So if you were an example would be a woman throwing her children out of the window to save them from a burning building or a fire, they sustain injuries, but that wouldn't be considered abuse. And the other one is religion, but it has to be a bona fide religion where, the family doesn't believe that the child should take medication. So those things are identified, but I'm not sure that the curriculum, and it does explain it, but I wonder sometimes if people really get that. But I do know that we have been playing around a lot with the culture. So thank you for bringing that up, Tammy. And then Lindsay.
Hi, yes, I'm here for my chief of staff. We're from State Representative Covington's office. So I'm taking notes, gonna give it back to her, but as of now, I don't have anything to change or suggest for the questions. Thank you.
Okay, so you like them.
I do.
All right. Okay, great. So thank
All
you.
right. I'm thinking out loud again, sorry. But this first one, are your concerns based on the parent or caregiver's refusal to provide inadequate care? I would also say refusal or inability to provide inadequate care. Because we don't necessarily know what all their circumstances are, but like that might warrant help from CYF, even if it's not like, you know, a willful, I'm harming my child kind of situation. I don't know, I think this first question and the last question are covering the same thing. If the intent is to just get people thinking, and then to have another video that would delve further into it where you could really address that bias part, because I think it is important, but I think it's not, I don't know if it's like different enough from the first one.
Okay, great feedback.
So I just want to point out for the first one, that is the question, is this a parent's refusal? Or are all these other things making it difficult or impossible for them to do it? Because if it's refusal, that's a different category. Whereas if it is their inability to because of all of these other things, then that's not necessarily abuse or neglect.
So I'm wondering if we can pare back the act. Oh, I'm sorry. Tashara had her hand up and I totally ignored it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no problem. I was just thinking that as kind of a, what is the thing when you in the middle and you've considered both sides? Oh my God, my brain. Compromise. As a compromise, such a difficult word. As a compromise, maybe we could consider as we write like a opening paragraph or something brief at the beginning of the questions, that's where we can define this work as being like anti-bias and our goals around ensuring that reporting is done as equitably as possible, just so we don't lose that and people understand the framework that we're coming at this work with.
So like a blurb at the beginning, just to frame it.
Exactly. Yeah, because my concern is, and I think probably many of us share, that if we take that out of the 5 questions, then it could come across as a little vanilla. And I don't think we should hide the ball. I think we should be very transparent about this is an issue. It's affecting and harming kids of color. And we want you to consider biases, privilege, etc.
Angie, were you going to say something?
I was kind of thinking something similar, but maybe we could pare down the actual question that's on the card and have like an asterisk and have like an explanation of all the different biases and things. I don't know. It would still be on the same page, but at least the question would be more succinct and to the point, and then we would have an explanation maybe down below. But I also like the blurb idea.
I have just a problem from a messaging standpoint, the one being so much bigger. I know that's not, but like, I don't think that would like, because if we just want these 5 quick questions and people just to be reminded, but I think we could do an asterisk or figure out how to do that. And
just to be honest, I don't read that long of sentences. Sorry.
No, I'm a bullet.
I mean, it's just true. I don't.
I like, have you considered your own biases?
Yeah.
What was written afterwards. But that would, in place of number 5. Number 1, I just think it's long, but I totally get the message.
So maybe like what Emily was saying, where we kind of leave number 1 as refusal or inability to be able to provide adequate care. And when we go to 5, maybe say, have you confronted your own bias? Maybe put 1 or 2 of those with that question. And then that one, the top one's not so long. And because like we said, it kind of is getting at the same thing.
So you're saying to make the first one be like, are your concerns based on the parent caregiver's refusal to provide adequate care? And then maybe we could even put the fifth question with it. Have you considered your own biases? And then for these two questions, these are the types of things you'd want to consider. Like cultural practices, and just like put it for both of them. Does that make sense?
No, I was trying to make one shorter, so eliminating
Yes,
that.
like just make it that first sentence,
Yes,
like to end at adequate care.
yes.
And then have you considered your own biases, period, well, question mark. And then maybe for the first two questions, these are the types of things you might want to consider, like socioeconomic status, and you could put like list them under those two questions.
I mean, I kind of like
I like
it.
that.
That's where we're going. Yeah.
I kind of think getting into the intention of the parent, whether it's refusal or inability, is making it kind of subjective, even more so. And I don't know that it's kind of muddying the waters of the original question, which is this parenting or is this poverty? Is this safety? Is this something that could be in the community?
I think that the biggest challenge too is a lot of people don't know the difference. So
Right.
if you've not been poor before, you don't know what poverty is. It looks like abuse to you. So I think that is where we're most challenged is people just
They don't know what poverty looks like.
And so that, I don't think they're always clear on what cultural differences might be either. I think that's the other thing that is a challenge. I think Sarah said it best when she gave the example of the Somalian family that didn't have socks, which is, a really easy fix. And we could certainly understand.
But that's, refusal, because that parent refused to give them socks. I think that's just,
So was the original question on this one, the one that, because I have like 25 iterations of this, was the initial question, is this poverty or opportunity gap or neglect?
yeah.
Is that the initial question for number one?
I believe that was like where we
Yeah.
started at before we went into the group and made it, yeah.
Because I'm wondering if we might want to go back to just like a more like maybe back to that, and then this part would come into the education blast. Or even if we do a longer, more in-depth booklet when we steal DCFSs.
We'll just pretend we didn't know about it.
It's like all gonna go in the court of law when I get in trouble for this. But I'm wondering if we just do that and then do more of the education there. So it's not teaching people to take all of those into consideration, or we could even follow it up with other cards maybe on each question too. Like, so I keep thinking about anything laminated, you don't lose. I don't know if anybody knows that, but like they did these cards, which I've never even read this, but I have it still. But I'm wondering if we could even do something like this, where it's like the 5 questions and then question 1, why are we at, what are we trying to get at here? And we could go more in depth. Question 2, same thing. And then maybe it could look more like this. I don't know. And it's laminated.
That idea. Yeah, I like that idea.
That a lot. I mean, because I think what we're up against is we're probably trying to fit everything into one, right? Really, this is a multi resource and multi project.
This is just to remember, like, oh, where's this, and then where to get more information.
Okay, I'm with you.
So are we at a point where we've worked through these questions? Do we want to move on from this, or do we still need to spend more time working through these? In my mind, I'm thinking that we might want to take one question at a time and kind of work through it to put a script together or the card or the video or but just so that we're moving towards a finished product. What are the thoughts? Angie? Are we ready to move on, or we're still not comfortable with moving on yet?
You're muted.
You're muted, Angie.
That was said with so much passion.
So, Angie, I'm mute. Tell me what you said.
Oh, she said she can't.
Oh, okay, I couldn't get my computer to move because it was frozen and I couldn't get
Okay.
it.
Okay.
I forgot what you even asked me. I think we should all move on.
All right. Okay, so what we did was we broke out into groups and we actually took a question and we worked on the question in those groups. I think that was helpful. Do we want to break out into groups to come up with a script or a video blast? And Betsy, I'll ask you to weigh in because this was kind of your part, so.
So I guess we wanted to just, because I think we need to get the cards and the video. So the video would be on the questions. So should we just do one question at a time and maybe think of like a specific, I always like scenarios to like walk it through. So I'm wondering if we want to break up and do that, or if we want to do that together. If anybody can think of a scenario for one of these 5 questions, and then we could back into maybe, we're done at 4, right? Or 4:30?
She has us at 5.
Oh, 5. Oh,
But we can be done at 4:30.
We always hold up hours, y'all. So please.
okay. 4:30, that sounds great. But then I'm wondering if we could break up and see if people could write some of the scripts in the meantime so we can get moving faster on this. And Rachel already really nicely agreed to wordsmith the 5 questions. Oh, nice.
Wow. No, I would love to do that. Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
also think I recall she does media stuff too.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I actually had a question. When we say like scripting these, are we thinking of doing like little vignettes for each question? And the only reason I ask is because I really like that idea, because you could have a longer, like 1.5-minute video that goes through each question that could go into training spaces. But then you could have, 15 to 20-second videos, like based on that longer one, broken down that are easily shareable on like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, because no one's going to watch a 1.5-minute video on Instagram, but they'll watch like a 20-second one. So I don't know if that was your thought process, but I love having like a little scenario for each question, just so people have a deeper understanding.
Yes, I think that is definitely the direction we were moving in.
So do people want to break it up into groups, or do we want to just see if people can think of?
Why don't we just do the first one together so people have an idea of what we're looking at, and then if there's time, we can split up and do the other groups.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Are we switching that question back to the original question? Or are we keeping that the same?
I think we were switching that back. I think we all should look at the order of the questions, just because it doesn't make, it's boggling my mind logically. I'm sorry. So like maybe if we could ask what the allegation is first, so that they have the allegation in mind, and then ask, is this poverty? Is this, that?
So what I would love to do is, if we were, Sarah, role play with me for a minute, humor me. All right, so let's just say that Sarah, I'm making the call in to you, all right? And you ask the first question. So I'm calling, I want to file a report for Childline.
Okay.
In your Childline, okay. I had some concerns. There is a family that's here, and it's the dead of winter, and the kids don't have any socks.
Okay. And are your concerns based on the parent or caregiver's refusal to provide socks? Or are there things that may be going on, like cultural practices? Or maybe
Well, I don't know. I just think the kids should have socks.
Okay, and did you explore any further with the family? Do you know anything about what's going on in the family? How many kids are there?
There are 6 kids.
Okay, and do you know if they have any supports or services in the home that work with them at all?
No, I don't know.
Okay, are there any other concerns that you have with the children? Safety concerns?
Just primarily that there are no socks on and it's winter.
And the children have shoes on?
There are shoes, but no socks.
And do they have winter coats?
There's no socks. Okay, so I'm gonna stop it right there.
Lady,
I don't want it to
that's
go
not
too
you.
long. And it was going longer than what I thought it should have gone. But what I was hoping that we would get at in that, because Sarah was asking all of these great questions. But I was hoping that it would get at the fact that there were no active safety threats, right? And so, you know, maybe we could do another one that shows you what an active safety threat does look like. And the way that
Sorry if I wasn't playing very well.
no, you're fine. You just were asking really good questions. That's all. So what do you guys think about something along the lines of that? So you do one where it, you can clearly see that it is not an active safety threat, where we can easily just get some socks and so maybe the question would be, have you provided the family, has your organization been able to provide the family with socks before? Okay, what are your thoughts? Because you're all looking at me kind of confused. I hope I didn't make it more confusing.
I think that would be more of an education blast to go into what is safety versus risk.
Okay.
What should be called to us versus not.
Right. So I feel like when we're doing this, aren't we kind of explaining that in these videos? Show me what you had in mind. That's what I was thinking. Let me know what you were thinking.
So I thought for these videos, it was explaining each question and why we're asking it.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. No?
Yeah.
You wanted a narrative. You didn't want an actual role play, right?
We can it doesn't matter how we do it. I just think safety versus risk is its own education blast because it is so much. So like, that's a little bit different than, is this poverty versus neglect, I think. Because you can have neglect,
so maybe
but not have safety.
Right. So maybe I was wrong with the video setup, but in my mind, to answer Rachel's question, I was thinking scenarios. But if we're more confused by the scenarios, then let's not use them.
I don't know. Somebody else talk.
Well, when it comes to the scenarios, I mean, like, because I don't want to lose anything in translation, but maybe the first one is just, I don't know, because I want to be careful too about not like being exploitative, but maybe it is just like a person pretending to be a mom and saying, the doctor's office called on me for medical neglect. It really wasn't fair because in reality, I just didn't have a car and I just couldn't get there. You know what I mean? And that gets at, okay, so this isn't a safety concern for her not bringing her children in. This is, she didn't have a car. Like there was other things going on there. So I don't know. In my brain, it was these like very personal vignettes that tell a little bit more of a story that don't explicitly say this is why we're asking this question, but do hint at that's what the question is intended to mean.
Yeah, I think your explanation was far more clear than mine. So what is the thought around the group? Does that make it a little bit easier? Okay, I'm seeing thumbs up from Tashara.
Yeah.
Angie, what were you thinking?
I was cool with the vignettes. That's fine.
Did you think what Rachel did I thought that was a better example.
I mean, I understood the reason for the vignettes. I was just thinking, I don't know. I thought we were doing a video on SUVI and safety versus risk. I also think safety versus risk is a different question than is this poverty or neglect? Because it can be neglect and not be safety.
Oh, right, absolutely.
So I think we're kind of, again, it might just be my brain, but I think we're kind of muddying the waters with.
Okay.
But
somebody else talk, seriously, it's not just.
Hey, can I ask the question? Because my brain is fading fast. I think in the first vignette, had more questions been asked, we were going to get that it was not a safety issue. Because the last question she asked is, okay, they have shoes and they have coats. So is it really a safety issue? Because they were, somewhat protected from the weather. So I'm not quite sure that, I mean, that's where my brain was going, like, Kate, why are you calling? Because it's not like they're out in the cold and, no protection at all. It's just not that particular. So that's not necessarily a safety issue. Is that correct? Am I hearing? I mean,
yeah, you were correct, but I think what Angie is saying is she didn't want the vignettes to maybe go into that just yet. She thought
that and I think we just want to make sure that the question is cleared throughout the vignette. I also don't know about the order of the questions, but
okay.
Yeah.
I put them in, when we had talked, Angie, we replaced, changed them. So I put them in the chat in a different order. I also think this video is to make people be better reporters, right? Even if they're not, they might be calling, because there's times people need to call us. So I'm wondering about, like, for what is the allegation? And this goes to, like, what is the concern? So, and I don't know how we get at this, because we get so many ridiculous calls. Like, I don't even know why people were calling. So I don't know how to get to that. Like, and I keep going to, we got an allegation that the family had tall grass. I still don't understand why that was like, and that could be a good example of saying, like, was there tall grass? You were concerned the family moved and didn't tell anybody? Are you concerned about tall grass, like baby is lost in the weeds in the grass? Like, what are you calling about? Is what I want to say to all of so many of our calls. Like, what is the allegation? So, I mean, the video game one could be too. Like, are you concerned that this kid, there's domestic violence going on? Are you concerned that there's, is that the kind of thing that we're thinking about? Like, so the first one, I think, what is the allegation is really like, why are you calling? What are your concerns? And this is also to help the people who are going out to investigate, because if you just say tall grass, we're going to be like, I don't care. But if you say tall grass because you're concerned the family moved or whatever, I don't know, like what we could, what are the concerns that we could then look for?
And I think that would be a good use of a vignette too, because we could show maybe even from our perspective, when we get the report that has nothing on it and how we react compared to when we get a fuller report and how we act.
I was just going to say that I'm thinking of this because we work the Office of Behavioral Health folks in schools, and a lot of the times they'll tell us that they made a call to CYF and CYF didn't do anything. And when we kind of talk with them a little bit more, we're like, well, what did you put in your call? What are you calling about? What's the concern? You can find out that they really didn't give you very much information. And they said like, oh, well, we're worried about, lice, as opposed to like, well, the family has had lice X amount of times, and also this, and also this, and also that. They like don't put all that information in. So if you do those like brief vignettes of like, what are you really concerned about? And then if you have vignettes, I feel like there should still be like something at the end that's like capturing everything. So there's nothing like lost in the weeds, like a quick narrative of like, this is why we want to do this would still be necessary even with the vignettes.
Yeah, I think, and Ange, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like that might have been what you were saying too. It's almost like there's an awareness component. There's like a hook and a grab you, and that might be the vignettes. And then there's like a deeper education component as well that can get into the nuances of, neglect versus poverty and safety versus risk.
this might have dropped off in one of our iterations, but Emily, I think what you were talking about makes sense. Like, we get these calls and there was something going on with that teacher today that they felt really concerned. And so what is, and I think at one point we were talking about like, why today? Like, why are you thinking of calling today? Like, was there an incident? This is like the 14th thing that it just tipped it over. Because I think too, some people, the schools will call and just tell us about truancy. Truancy we don't care about. But if it's truancy, but you're also concerned because this kid often is hungry, not that that's but like just showing there might be something else going on. I think that people call about the one thing they know CYF might do something about, which by the way, we don't do anything about truancy, but not much anyway. We try, not much, but like, so I'm wondering if we add that sentence, like, what made you think to call today? Like, why today? Would get at that? I don't know if I'm making this harder.
I don't think it is. And I wonder if we can just kind of use that, you know, maybe after the scenario, we're like, why today? Or like we were saying, just adding something to make them think. So I don't know. But I do think we should have a scenario with an explanation.
Maybe something before the scenario and then something after the scenario to explain what we're doing.
Yep.
Okay. So the first part would be like an introduction of why we're doing any of this. So if we break it down, so we need, and then explaining a question, do scenario, and then how you can be a better reporter on these things, right? Like, because we're not telling people to investigate, but they have a lot more information that they're not giving. Too.
The burden of investigation is not on the person, and the man in that training says it throughout the entire training. However, it does stress the importance of documentation. And if you're just putting that the grass was too high, that is not appropriate documentation. It is not thorough documentation. You need to at least say, you know what, the grass is high and this family was a family that always kept their grass cut. I'm concerned that, you know, people or adults are not in the home. Like, there needs to be more. And that's not investigation, but you need to be documenting. Documenting is important. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's okay. I'm just sitting here thinking, the people in schools know what a safety concern is, and do they know what neglect is? I think it, like that simple. Like, I think when they call in and they say we have high grass, I think the grass is being neglected. So the family, I think they jumped to 1,000 conclusions. Like, the family must not have money. Are they taking care of the kids? Kids aren't being taken care of. And it sets off this cycle, and then they call.
Right. So if they're going through mandated child abuse reporter training, it does explain CPS and GPS. And so they are encouraged that even if it is a GPS report, they should still make the call, because a GPS report can be opened up, and once investigated, they may see allegations that are, you know, CPS related. So, but that still is not enough documentation to go on. So people do need to be thorough in their documentation. But I think that's where these education blasts will help, because it'll give them a little bit more information if we do this right. You know what I mean? If we provide the explanation in a way that it'll clear up any ambiguity that they may have. Because I think that people are just confused sometimes, and they make the report because it's like, I'm confused, I don't really know, but you know what? I don't want to get a fine or go to jail, so I'm just going to make this report anyway.
I'm wondering if there's a scenario that we could tie all together. Like, I was thinking about the lice one, because that could be severe concern, but it also could be just really stupid. But I'm wondering if for all of these, we could have something like we could tie it together on what we like. For what is the allegation? Well, I'm concerned this child keeps missing school because this is the 14th time they've had lice this year. Mom has, not responded. We've not, blah, blah, blah. And then have you checked your biases? Like, now I'm getting lost in I talk before I think, so I don't know where I'm at now. I'm done.
No, I like that because I will tell you, I probably get a lice call about 20 times a year. And usually I have to stop and say to them, before you call, have you offered support? The parents have an intellectual disability. Can you dig a little bit deeper to see what supports we can put in place before we jump right straight to this is a neglect thing, this is a safety issue? Because I feel like I get it all at least 3 or 4 times a month from the schools I have. It's either they have bed bugs, they have they're coming to school with lice, or a cockroach was in the book bag. We're going to call CYF, which is ridiculous.
Now I'm itchy whenever we talk about lice. But that does answer can we mitigate the circumstances? Do they have resources? I don't know.
So Betsy, does that change what this group's original plan for the video is then? Because then are you doing a longer video then to incorporate all of those questions versus?
Oh, you're right. We should do different.
Now I'm with Rachel. People are not going to watch a long video. I think we have to keep it as short as possible. Yep. And I think we need to do 1 video per question because we're already getting pretty lengthy with the 1 video. We'll have a movie by the time we get finished. So.
Yeah. And I think there are also places though where people are forced to watch a whole video, like in the mandated reporter training. That is a captive audience. They'll sit for the full 2-minute video. You know what I mean? But if we want shareable vignettes online, I do think that being able to break up a longer video based on specific questions to share independently online will get a broader audience.
So with this, maybe because I'm trying to figure out how to do work that makes sense today. What if we just bullet point the key messages for each of the questions, and then maybe we could split them up and bring them back to the next one, trying to think of a scenario or how to walk through it. Does that make sense? Because I think we're just going to keep spinning here. But what are the top 3 messages from, the first one? What is the allegation? We want people to be a thorough reporter. If there is concerns, we want them to have the good documentation, to have followed up with questions. I can't stand when we get these calls, and if they would have just added a follow-up question. And that one, I always think about I think I've told this group it several times. I almost got a CYF call because my daughter had a black eye, and she told them it was that her friend did it, and they asked if her friend was big or small, and she said big. And who was it? Rocco. Rocco is our dog. And thankfully they asked her who Rocco was. But just those questions, or what was happening when your mom hit you? Not an investigation, but hey, what was happening?
You can ask questions. Mm-hmm. I had a little girl who had scratches on her hand, and the teacher walked by and said, "What happened to your hand?" And she said, "Oh, my mom did it." And that was it. They made a child line. But when, if she would have just asked, "Well, how did your mom do that?" The little girl would have said, "I ran in front of a truck and my mother saved my life," it was.
That's a good one. That would be so I think for the first question, what is the allegation? So we want to know, being a thorough reporter, follow-up questions. I think that vignette is perfect. The little girl with the scratches. That would be an easy one to do too, because you could even show the video of what she tells the teacher and then what happened, right? And okay, so being a good reporter, you're not an investigator, but you can ask questions.
You can definitely ask questions.
That's huge. I think a lot of people in the provider world and even the school world, you hear the message, you're not the investigator of child abuse. And so they don't ask questions and are afraid to ask questions.
Right,
And
but it doesn't mean you can't ask questions. You can certainly ask questions. I had a little girl, I was a TSS years ago. She walked into the classroom with a black eye. You know, I just said really matter of factly, what happened to your eye? Never expecting her to say that she was hit in the eye with a spoon by her foster mom. I said, well, was it an accident? She was like, not at all. You know what I mean? So you can ask. It didn't take a lot. You ask the question, and you know, we know that's a child line right there. We need to be making a call for that. So
Is there anything else we need in that video? Just the video for what is the allegation?
I'm going to refer to Rachel, our video expert here.
I think it's great for what it's worth.
Do we have to find actors for these scenarios?
We are the actors. We
That's
have to go with what we have.
That is a great question. I was gonna ask, do we got a budget here? Like, what does this look like?
The actors are here. We have no budget.
Can't we do those little video animate, like, can't they do those?
We can reach out to them.
My suggestion, yeah. That's what I was planning to do, was just get the Office of Equity Engagement to do that, yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I don't want to be in a video.
Those cartoons?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't want those? You want live action?
I just think that people relate to seeing other people in the videos. That's just me.
So can we?
But if I'm outvoted, I'm okay with that.
No, I think it's okay. We don't need to make that decision right now, right? We need content.
Right.
We don't want to scare people away, Twanda. Now you told them they're going to be on video and no one will come next week.
No,
next month. Okay, are those the key question or key messages for that video? I think that one can be really short and sweet. We could also go into one for the school about, we could do a really quick video, quick part about the why today. I think that one could be, that's where we could use a lice situation where it's like, why today? Well, yeah, it's lice today, but these are my 15 other concerns. And today was just the and how to be a good reporter. Okay, good. One down. Have you checked your biases or place of privilege? How do we do this in video? Oh, is this where we go into all those other things from the other?
But I thought that was last, and this one was going to be the poverty versus opportunity gap versus.
So have you checked your biases should be the last question.
I don't. Or maybe lower than.
I was just gonna say, unless it's after, is this poverty, opportunity gap, and neglect?
Yeah. Although if we ask it before, then maybe they question a little bit and give us a more honest answer about whether it's poverty or neglect.
So most people aren't going to know that, I bet.
That's true.
Yeah, I think we have to do the bias and privilege question first.
Okay. So have you checked yourself?
So what could we get out of a quick video on how to check your privileges? I know there's tons of resources. I love that Harvard implicit bias test. So we could even put that on the screen as something you can do. But what are key messages?
Oh, the key messages.
Or a vignette that would showcase.
Sometimes people just live differently than you. Can we get that across?
Now that actually could be done through a cartoon too. Like, you know, you could show people eating different foods, people dressing differently, you know, and definitely go into sometimes people are just not the same, and that's okay.
Right. Or, yeah,
household food, how dressing
Well-
for weather.
yeah. Cleanliness. We get it a lot for cleanliness. Or we
Well,
can
I got a
even have
complaint
like,
about a kid whose hair just wasn't done on it.
oh goodness, yeah, we've gotten those.
Yeah.
Or we could have like someone, maybe two caseworkers walking out of a building and one's like, oh my gosh, this is the worst I ever saw. And then the other one kind of talks them through like,
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's good. We can show, what is an active safety threat. Well, you don't want
Right.
to go into safety yet, so I won't do that.
no,
But
it's not
what
that I
is-
don't want to go into safety. I just, safety
You-
versus risk is different than.
Right,
Just
right,
use
right,
versus
right.
property,
You
yeah.
wanna exactly. But showing, what's messy versus what is actually,
Deplorable. Yeah.
I
and
really like your idea. You could show a house or like a real short home visit where like maybe a kid's running around with no like just their diaper or, and it's cold, like in the one
Yeah.
case where it comes out and is like, oh my God, why was that kid not wearing anything? They're gonna freeze. And like saying like those things, and then other case where it's like, oh, well, I see this, and just like contrasting. I think that would be, and then maybe give resources for people to follow up on.
Yeah, on their
And do
own.
we just even want to say why? Like really be explicit in our just real quick data on
The front
the
doors. where-
disparities and referrals?
Yeah.
I like that too, because then if anyone looks bad in the video, it's the caseworker, it's not the mandated reporter. You know what I mean? So we don't like
That
lose
too,
our
right.
audiences. They're not like, yeah.
And everybody has
Exactly.
them, so.
good point. Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah.
Okay. All right, 2 down. Anything else on that one? Okay. Is this poverty, opportunity, gap, or neglect?
I think Heidi's example, where she talked about stopping people before they called us, that would probably go towards this one more, or were we using lice for the first one? I can't remember.
We don't have to use like, I was just expressing like someone who, like why today, we could do something else, like.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We don't have to, that, it's not integral to lice. I'm just now, my head's itchy, so I'm thinking of lice.
Yeah. Well, and I told you getting on the call that I wasn't all, so now we're an hour and a half in.
I
So
think
you were
that
saying Heidi's one about what?
Just the conversation she has, with
With this
people that
girl?
we're gonna call in, and have we provided a resource, that kind of things.
Well,
Oh, no,
not-
that's the mitigate, one. I'm out.
I'm stuck. So
Even, what about the example where we were something similar to the one about the sock? We're saying, why don't they have socks?
That, or we could do one, so I have families that have been called in because they don't have gas, which is what their heat is, but they instead make do with like space heaters and things. So, that's a poverty issue. That's not a CYF
Right.
issue.
And that's
Maybe this is where I think it was Rachel said the one about the mom who just couldn't get her kids to
Right.
the
that
doctor.
one.
Like that would be a good one for here.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I like that one better.
I'm wondering if we could even walk that through of a doctor calling in, this mom has missed 2 appointments. And then then you cut to the mom who's maybe talking to the caseworker about all the things. And then we find out that the doctor could have even gotten them transportation, but I think we could walk through that one pretty well.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm thinking about that because one of the scenarios in the mandated child abuse reporter training is around a mom that didn't take her child to the dentist appointment. And it is after they had provided free dental appointment, was a list of scenarios that they had provided. And then the child ends up with, a really bad toothache. But whenever I read that scenario, it often makes me think like, okay, well, was transportation an issue? Like, what are the other barriers to it? I think about that, I think, but what they're looking at is the fact that it does end up being a serious medical injury.
Yeah, and I've had, failure to thrive and things because not being able to get there, but also not utilizing community resources and those kinds of things to get there. So I think that one's kind of iffy. If they've only missed 1 or 2 appointments, fine. But, if they're a family that has a history and that kind of stuff, then missing 1 or 2 appointments is totally legit.
Well, that goes back to Betsy's why today.
Right.
So maybe they'll go into more and say, well, this is the 8th appointment they've missed.
Right.
Right. Okay.
So we're about 10 minutes before done time. And we have 2 more to work through. I'm wondering if anybody is willing to maybe work through more of a script on one of these. I can even send this out to whoever. Who has the email list of everybody who's here? Would that be Tashira?
So Tashira has the email list, but what I am going to ask people to do, I'm going to save the chat. If you would put your email in the chat before you leave, that way we can harass you to come back to the next meeting. So
also we're giving some
we won't lose you.
So is there anyone willing to really work through one of these scenarios? I mean, we'll all be helpful, but if we could get some more the actual what the video would not look like, but what the script would be. Is anyone willing to?
What about you, Eunice? Since you're working on this with you, are you in fellows right now?
No, Leadership Academy.
Oh,
fellows too, but
oh, you're in fellows too. My goodness.
I mean, I did it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can.
Which
now,
one? Well, since
you
volunteered first,
we did 2 people, so you can have a combination of ideas.
Yeah,
I'm willing to do. I can do it. Yep. You want me
do you have a choice of which question?
That's what I was gonna say. You're gonna assign me one, or
no? You're the first.
Pick.
You're the first up, so you get the choice.
Look, I'll take the first one.
Okay, so Eunice is gonna take the first one. Eunice. Okay.
And you'll send your notes because we kind of touched on it a little bit already.
Yeah, we went through the first 3, so I can give my notes are not. I will have to rewrite them.
I was taking some, then I kind of stopped.
Is anyone else willing to? So Rachel's going to reword the 5 questions. So that's already her assignment.
So Eunice, can I give you my information? Maybe we can collaborate, or if I can support you in any way, I'll do that. I'm going to put my email in the chat, but I'm also going to give you my phone number too.
Okay.
Does someone want to do the mitigating the circumstances? I think that one might be a good one from maybe our school support people.
Sure, we can work on that one.
Okay, so
We'll put something together.
Mitigate, and that is you and Rusty
I'll help with that one.
and Heidi.
Emily, I can help you too. Yep.
Oh, perfect. This does not have to be long and involved. I think we're just trying to get progress. Okay, so just to kind of so we're not doing this every time and keep just whittling away at this, that we maybe can go through these next time and keep working on it. So, okay, perfect. I will, so mitigate is Emily, Rusty, and Heidi. Okay. Angie, you want to do bias with me?
Boy, do I.
I said with me, although we are bad partners.
We are bad partners. We need someone to balance us out.
I'll
And it's
support
not
you as-
Twanda.
I'll
Twanda's
support
just as bad with us.
I know.
I'm the
We're
worst.
not a good combo. I love you all, but okay,
Absolutely.
so Angie and I will do that. And
Okay.
I'll do the introduction, like the why we're doing this.
We
All
could,
right.
yeah.
Bias, and then we have, okay, and then intro is me. And then poverty, opportunity gap, or neglect. And then what do you want to happen, or the,
So you know what? Put that Sarah and I can. Sarah, you still here? Sarah
she's
and I.
driving away.
Yeah.
Are you good with us working on the poverty neglect question?
That's the one that's been haunting me over and over, but sure.
I know.
So
That's
a yes.
good. Then you can get it out of your nightmares. Okay, and then what do you want to happen? I wonder if that's, I don't know what that, maybe we'll just leave that alone. Because I'm trying to figure out like what our messaging would be on that, but.
So let's save that for the next time we meet, and we can throw that out again, start with that, and maybe, chip away at it at the next meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good idea.
And, okay. Does that sound good? So we have all of the questions. Did anybody else have anything that we didn't touch at all on the abolitionist stuff?
So I'm going to ask that you just recap the directions, the action steps you want us to bring back to the next meeting again. And then-
So the people that have kind of volunteered, coerced, are going to look at their question and write out as much as they can a script for a very short video. And I'll send you the key messages that we've talked about today that you might want to make sure are in it. So that's what we will work on at our next meeting. And we'll also work on the question, what do you want to happen?
Yep.
Does that sound good? Did I hit everything?
Yes,
Bing, bam, boom.
that sounds great.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for spending this afternoon with us. Eunice, I will gladly work on that one with you as well. And then maybe we can talk about your other ideas for what you were planning on doing.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thank you.